The 2023 season is coming to an end, and I wanted to share some of our successes in the garden and some of our very embarrassing failures. My name is Deanna from Far From Homesteading. This is my garden, and I will admit I'm not really pleased with the way that the garden turned out this year. And there are a lot of reasons why. Let me just show you. We actually got lots of tomatoes this year. You probably can't see that, but we actually got lots of tomatoes this year. But I did not properly tie up the tomatoes. They fell over, they broke, they got diseased. And even though we still have a few tomatoes left, not all of them are good. Some of them have spots on them. Some of them are just going out to the chickens. Another problem that we had with the tomatoes this year was early on in the season, it rained a ton. And so we are not having the problem now so much. But earlier in the season, all of these tomatoes had blossom end rot, and we lost a lot of tomatoes. But blossom end rot is not something that we normally have to deal with, because where I live is kind of like close to the desert, so it doesn't rain a ton here. And usually we have to make sure we water, so getting tons of rain is just kind of weird. This bed here is where we planted the potatoes, and quite honestly, guys, it had just dried out enough, and I was about to dig up the potatoes, and we got an unexpected downpour. So we were all out here when the rain started, frantically digging up the potatoes, because I didn't want the ground to get wet and them to get wet and then them not cure correctly. So I did not get any video of that because it was pouring down rain, and I did not want to bring my camera out here. We probably got like 30 or 40 pounds of potatoes, and I think that's pretty good for just this raised area here. We've only grown potatoes a few times, and this is the first year we got a pretty big harvest, and oh man, I've been really enjoying the potatoes. So potatoes were a success, I would say. Our cabbage was not so much a success, and the reason why is we got terrible cabbage worms. I mean, I covered these up with a net. They still got in there, just demolished things. So I actually left these in here, and I have been feeding these to the chickens sporadically. I got a few really nice heads of cabbage out of here. Look at this beautiful sunflower, y'all. I mean, look at all those heads. Isn't that wonderful? Oh gosh, there's a bee. Don't sting me, bee. It actually got bent over here, and I thought it was going to die, but it did that. So in this bed, we got just a couple cabbages that we could use that were not completely ate up by worms. It happened so fast. I mean, I covered them before I went to Oklahoma. I was gone a couple weeks to Oklahoma, and I came back, and it was just full of cabbage moths inside my netting. There were so many worms, so I just took it off, and then, well, it just escalated from there. So we got a couple really nice heads of cabbage. I was really excited about these heads of cabbage, and then I made sauerkraut with them, and I mixed it up into several different batches because I wanted it to be good, and I wanted to try it several different ways, and I honestly did not do something right or something, and it was just gross. So apparently sauerkraut is something I'm going to have to work on, and maybe I'll practice over the winter time and turn my waiting room into a classroom, as Jess says. But the cabbage didn't go well. I still have a few here. I kind of used this as a trap crop because I wasn't going to need this bed again, and I knew like all the bugs were here, so why not just leave them here? So that's kind of what I did. And I've just been kind of feeding them to the chickens sporadically as a treat, and they love it. And the bugs have kind of stayed here, and besides the grasshoppers, left everything else alone. Grasshoppers was another really big problem. I mean, they came in and they did things like this. Like this is what the grasshoppers did. This is a marigold, if you could see. Like, they just came in and ate things. Killed back my little pumpkin, and Then after the grasshoppers left, it started growing back. And so all that's green. It's coming back to life. So all the pest pressure is off of it. This year was actually a really great pepper year. I don't know if you can see behind me, but all of these plants are really loaded with peppers. It was a great pepper year. At the beginning of the season, though, they were devastated by grasshoppers. And it ate a lot of the vegetation off the plants. And then we got really a lot of rain. So the peppers were also experiencing blossom end rot, which I've never, guys. We don't usually have that problem here. So finally, the rain kind of mellowed out and it stopped raining so much. The peppers were able to kind of recover from the pest damage, and they were finally growing new peppers that didn't have blossom end rot. And because they had lost so many leaves because of the grasshoppers, I ended up getting really bad sun scald problems with my peppers, which is just another thing, you know. So peppers were both a success and a failure. I successfully grew lots of peppers. However, a lot of them had a lot of damage and I wasn't able to use them. So yes. Wait, did I grow enough peppers? Yes. Do I have peppers in my freezer and have been eating a ton of peppers? Yes. Yes. Okay. Can I just interject something real quick? You know, I haven't made a video in a while, and I feel like I'm just a blubbering mess right now. So I'm hoping that this video is making sense, because it doesn't really feel like it is to me right now. So hopefully I can bring it together in editing. And this is something that is salvageable, but I just like to say, if I do seem off, guys, I know I do. It is really hard to make a video after you haven't made a video in a while. It is like, well, I mean, it's like getting up on stage in front of a bunch of people, and you just feel like avoiding it at all costs. And it's not like I'm avoiding you guys. It's just there's a lot of vulnerability that goes into making videos, especially ones like this, where I'm taking you around and telling you about all the ways that I totally messed up in the garden. And you know, I'm just going to be real with you. The biggest failure that I had in the garden is that I didn't show up. And I mean, you can plant the seed, you can do all the things. The garden does really want to grow, but if you have expectations of your garden, but you're not going out and doing the work, putting the work in, you're not going to achieve your expectations, and then you're just going to feel like a giant loser. So if you have a tendency to set super high expectations on yourself, just know that takes a lot of work. To be honest, at the beginning of the season, when it was time to put in the garden, I was very gung-ho and energetic and happy and enthusiastic. I don't know if any other word I can think of, but I was like really excited to do the gardening, and I got a lot of the stuff planted, but not everything I wanted to plant. And then I went on vacation for an extended amount of time, for a few weeks. And when I came back, it was really hot. And a lot of the stuff that I thought that I might be able to still plant, I tried. It rained a lot. It was just a really weird season. The pests had already gone insane. When I got back, there were caterpillars everywhere. There were grasshoppers everywhere. I came home to a full-on war in the garden, and I wasn't prepared, and I just avoided it. I mean, that is like my biggest flaw, is avoiding things. So I avoided my garden a lot this year. I didn't even get my winter squash planted in time to get winter squash, except for maybe some of these little Godiva pumpkins. But other than that, like, nothing. I thought I was going to plant these giant pumpkins with my son, and we planted them, but we planted them too early, and then they got a little bit leggy, and when I got them out here and then went to Oklahoma, they just did not do well. And by the time I got back from Oklahoma, there wasn't time to plant anymore. So that was like a big bummer because that was something we were really looking forward to. But next year, I still got giant pumpkin seeds, so we can still do it next year. So yeah, that's the deal. It's been a crazy year, and there were successes. Not all of them were exactly successful, but they weren't total failures. And then some of them were just absolute total failures. The biggest being myself and just my inability to show up when I was needed. And gosh, I'm really hoping that next year goes a little better. I'm really putting my positivity into next year. You know, all of my failures are actually successes if I learn something from them. So I just have to look at this in an optimistic, positive way. What did I learn from my failures? What can I do different next year? And that's what's magical about gardens, is they teach you so much, and you can always try again next year. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. Please don't judge me too harsh on this video or my really terrible looking garden. It is embarrassing. Oh, I guess I could add in that I was told I could not plant sweet potatoes where I live because it's too cold, and I attempted to plant sweet potatoes, and it's too cold. That was a failure as well. I guess sometimes you just have to know your limitations, right? Buy the sweet potatoes at the store. Anyways, guys, thanks for hanging out with me today in the garden. If you want to share your successes and failures in the comments below, I would love to read about them. And we can learn from each other. That's what this is really all about, right? Being on YouTube and learning from one another. I think YouTube is probably my go-to source for learning how to do things on the homestead. What about you guys? What's your #1 source for learning how to do things on the homestead? Also, hit me up with your failures and your successes. And until next time, guys, see ya.